I always recommend leaving the notifications off as long as you can in the morning, and don't check on those notifications. Don't check that because that can lead to the day starting off in a stressful state. When you're starting off with all of those notifications and what's going on Facebook and checking your emails, and then you're kind of like all of a sudden right off the bat in this state of overwhelm and crazy, and instead doing something that is going to benefit you that can last throughout the day. Are you a mom who's struggling to balance taking care of loved ones while also taking care of yourself? It's a very common challenge, but there is actually a simple solution: daily affirmations. In Mom Mantras, the daily affirmation guide for mothers of all kinds, you'll find powerful affirmations and mantras that will help you improve your health, happiness, and mindset. Whether you are a biological mom, an adoptive mom, a stepmom, a pet mom, a motherly figure, this book is for you. Read these mantras in the morning, before bed, really anytime throughout the day to uplift your spirits and to stay focused on what matters most. Visit mommantras.com to get your own copy and to start living a more intentional, purposeful life. Hello and welcome back to Holistic Mama Speaks, the podcast, Season 2. I am your host, Carrie Marie Vaughn, and I'm just so excited to continue our journey together towards holistic living, wellness, and abundance. Wow. In Season 2, we are just going to be diving deeper into a variety of different topics related to natural health, mindful living, wealth and abundance, and even conscious parenting. I'm just so excited. And I will be featuring expert guests who will share their knowledge and experience with us. So many amazing people, some returning guests from Season 1 and some new guests. I will also be answering listener questions and addressing some common concerns related to holistic living. And you can actually submit your questions by going to holisticmamaspeaks.com/ask. ASK. My goal is to provide you with practical tips and inspiration that you can incorporate into your own life. Whether you are a seasoned holistic living enthusiast like some people, or if you are just starting out on this journey, there is just something for everyone along the way. So I'm just happy to have you here in the Season 2 of Holistic Mama Speaks. And just as a side note, by listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this as medical advice or to treat a medical condition. You can visit holisticmamaspeaks.com to find the full disclaimer. So sit back, relax, and let's explore a world of holistic living and abundance together. Hello and welcome back to Holistic Mama Speaks. I am your host, Carrie Marie Vaughn, and I am joined tonight by three lovely people. I have Kris Belfry, Vande Hey, and Emanuela Visone, and we are here to talk to you about how to manage stress at work and home, which is huge for all moms, right? And so I am going to just go around the room and I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what it is you're doing to help people before we get started on the topic at hand. So Emanuela, I'm going to have you go ahead and start since you're right next to me in my viewing window.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight with everyone. And my name is Emanuela Visone. I'm a certified functional nutritionist counselor, a health and life coach. And my passion is to help people really reverse and manage chronic issues, chronic disease, especially thyroid issues. So that is my specialty. But I also do on the flip side, that's my business called Embody Vitality. And then my other business, Dog IBS, is where my passion is to help pet owners heal their dogs using a whole food approach.
Very cool. Well,
Yes.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Michelle, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Michelle Vande Hey with Light of Love Coaching, and I help nonprofit founders and leaders and leaders of other mission-driven organizations to not burn out. It's really like burnout recovery and burnout prevention from compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma. And so I use things that I learned through my holistic life coaching certification, as well as trauma sensitive yoga, to really have that like trauma-informed lens on the coaching that I do.
Very awesome. Well, thank you. And Kris, I'm
Yeah.
going to turn it over to you last.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks for having me again. My name is Kris Belfry, and I'm an embodiment coach. And really what that is I teach people to, get out of your heads and get more into your bodies. It's to become more self-aware. And I use techniques like meditation, mindfulness, and ways to get back into your body so we can, it's really great for people that are stuck in a relationship, stuck in a job, stuck in their overall well-being. I teach people just to start to let go of some patterns that they've been holding on to since their childhood, through mindfulness and meditation, really.
Very cool. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I am so glad to have the three of you here tonight. And stress is one of those things that I feel like everybody encounters in their life in one way or another. And so it's very important how we can manage that stress, because there isn't really a way of avoiding all stress. That's impossible, unless we kept ourselves in a little bubble. But I think that would be stressful in itself to be enclosed in a little area. And so the different ways, we all have different ways that we own, our own personal bodies. We like to deal with stress and manage it and relieve it in different ways. But then we're also working with all different people. And so I'm sure that, each of us have something little that we can share that we are able to help other people with as far as to manage their stress. And it might be a little bit different at home than it is for a work environment, because you're dealing with your loved ones, and then you're dealing with your coworkers, the people you kind of have to be put in relationships with in both places. But one of them is kind of, you chose them a little bit and the other one you're stuck with. So I would love to hear a little bit about what you all have to offer around this, any kind of tips and, the best way of stress relief that you can come up with that has worked for you and your clients.
Let me go for it. So the first thing, obviously, because, I believe in whole foods, right? I believe in a whole food approach. For me, what you eat is either going to help you heal or it's going to help you get sicker and feel more tired. So I really focus on shifting people away from whole foods and shifting them, or actually, I'm sorry, shifting them away from processed foods that are filled with sugar and trans fats and that are low in nutrients. And then really little by little making small shifts towards a whole food approach. Because when you think about it, if the body doesn't have the proper nutrients, you can't really get the energy that you need to actually make it through the day. So that can also create really it just creates an environment for you to not be the best version of you that you could be. So, for me, I usually focus on teaching people how to eat whole foods like fish, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and legumes, and really nourish themselves with a real food diet that's going to balance their blood sugar and creating a healthy plate, right? They want to create a healthy plate with regards to having half of their plate being filled with low glycemic vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, a small portion of it, like a quarter of I usually tell them the size of their palm of lean, clean protein, and also a healthy fat. You want to have a small portion of a healthy fat. And that could be avocados or oils like extra virgin olive oil or olives. And then if they'd like, you can have a small portion of a starchy grain or a vegetable, a starchy vegetable like sweet potatoes. So that's really the first focus that I do give, because I think that when you're feeding yourself high, vibrant, nutrient foods, it's going to feed your brain. You're going to be able to think faster. It's going to give you energy versus eating foods like processed foods and fast foods that are going to rob your energy. And really, it's just going to make you not perform the way that you want at home or at work.
Yes, such good points, because I know that if I'm eating a little unhealthy, I get tired and crabby. and so I think that I'm more prone to being stressed in different situations when I'm not eating a healthy diet. So great points. Michelle or Kris, do you have anything to add to that? How are some ways that you have helped your clients deal with stress in different ways?
Sure, I'll go. Yeah, I guess for me it's a little bit different. I guess I really think breathing, breath work, anything with breath is really important. A lot of problems start with not enough oxygen in our bodies. So when we are feeling stressed, then we stop breathing even more. So it's really just, when we're triggered or something happens, we're feeling stress, is I just teach people to pause, take a moment and just take some breaths, take some nice, solid, deep breaths. It's not, we've been taught that, I'm not sure if we've been taught, but if you watch a little baby, babies breathe with their bellies, but we tend to just breathe our chests. So really just take some nice, big, deep belly breaths and, teach people to even go deeper, but really just, it's a simple process for people, regardless of their, ability. Breath work is a something very simple that they can make some positive changes. And not just that, I really recommend even just breathing through your nostrils as well, because breathing through your nose, there's a ton of extra benefits um, that there is with breathing through your nose. And so, yeah, and I can get into the all the problems, but by lack of oxygen. But from a stress point of view, just take a pause, be aware, pause, and then breathe. Nice, simple technique. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I have found that breath work has been very helpful for me in relieving stress.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both what Emanuela and Kris said. I would just add that, consider like what is around you and like your environment, and maybe like what are some things that you can start eliminating from your environment. Like what have you been taking on that maybe you can let go of? Because a lot of times stress it is partially due to like overwhelm of like, oh, as moms, as working moms, right? It's like you have all of these things to do, and so just like letting go of some of those things, and something simple that you can do to kind of lower stress, especially with phones these days, is like turning off your notifications for social media apps and or whatever other, like turning those things off, so that maybe if you're having an argument or something like that with someone in your house, you don't have these like dings going off in the background that's all of a sudden adding more to that stress, right? Like, oh my gosh, now I have to go respond to an email or something like that. And so that's something big that I really tell everyone. It's like there's very few people that need to have notifications on their phone. And I've now for a long time have my phone on silent pretty much 99% of the time. It's like it's because I have my phone next to me. It's like if I'm getting an important phone call, I'll see that. But phone calls don't happen that often that like it's that aren't spam phone calls. So yeah, so I think like something like that, and even just like decluttering spaces in your home, because that's really just like, again, you're just like eliminating some of the burdens that you kind of feel, and decluttering those different areas in your home too can really help. And even if it's just like one little space on your countertop, or a certain drawer that's been bothering you lately, all those little things, it's like those are the things that you don't think about, but they're in your head, and then all of a sudden you remember them, and it adds to the stress when those stressful moments happen. And then that's when, whatever your stress response is, whether it's yelling or whatever it is, can come up more easily, and it's harder to tune in and say, okay, I need to do my breath when you're thinking about all these other things. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I keep my phone my notifications off almost all day and all night. I have my phone set. Thankfully, there's a cool feature that I figured out on my iPhone, or probably one of my kids told me actually, where you can put in a bedtime and then you can put in when you wake up in the morning. And so it automatically puts it into like night mode. So the notifications aren't coming through, the light is not as bright and everything like that. It's so handy because I don't need to think about it. And it will even remind me like, oh, you have your bedtime coming up soon. And that's nice because it's like, it's okay. I'm forcing myself to go to bed at a decent time so I'm not staying up so late, because I think lack of sleep can also lead to stress during the day and lack of energy and things like that. So, for me personally, and also, the people I work with, I always recommend trying to get a good night's sleep. And then also having water beside your bed, because it's a really great idea to drink some water when you first wake up in the morning to just really hydrate your body, and it kind of helps you to wake up. But I always recommend leaving the notifications off as long as you can in the morning, and don't check on those notifications. Don't check that, because that can lead to the day starting off in a stressful state. When you're starting off with all of those notifications and what's going on Facebook and checking your emails, and then you're kind of like all of a sudden right off the bat in this state of overwhelm and crazy. So I recommend leaving it off for as long as possible. For me personally, I don't check anything for at least the first hour and a half of the day. I didn't start off at that long of a time. That might seem crazy to some people, but even if you can do it for like your first half hour of the day, just not looking at it at all. And instead doing something that is going to benefit you, that can last throughout the day. So it could be deep breathing exercises like Kris was mentioning, or it could be meditation, it could be prayer, it could be journal writing. I personally like to do a little bit of all of those every single morning during that time. That's my time in the morning to do that. And I find that I'm a bit more stress-free during the day when I'm able to start my day with something like that. It's just such a great way. But also something that is helpful that I have found for myself, and also some of the people that I work with, is that if you set an intention before you go into a place, so let's just say your work environment is a tad stressful, before you walk through that door, set intentions of who you want to be and how you want to show up at that place. And just by making a point to set those intentions of, I want to be calm, I want to be, whatever it is that you want to show up in that moment, then all of a sudden you can just make sure that you are being that person. It's crazy when you think about it. It's just that awareness part. And I think, Kris, you mentioned that earlier about being aware. And that's, awareness is so huge. So if you're able to start things off with awareness and setting those intentions, and the same thing before you walk into home, instead of bringing the chaos and the stress of work with you through that door, take some deep breaths and then set an intention of who you want to be when you walk through that door. Going to be loving and caring, understanding, patient, whatever it is, whoever that person is that you want to be when you walk through that door with your family. And that makes a huge difference as well.
Yeah.
So if any of you have anything more to add to that, as far as kind of managing those different areas that could be a bit stressful.
I think that one thing that really comes to mind that a lot of, and I think that I used to be, and sometimes I do remind myself to have a healthy yes and no boundaries, because sometimes I feel like we can say yes to things that we truly don't want to do just to please other people. And I think that that can create a lot of stress for us. And it also can, you basically look at it as a mason jar, right? We have these big rocks that are there for you and what you want. And these big rocks are our priorities: rest, nourishing food, family time, self-care, etc. These are like non-negotiables, right? But then we have all these little pebbles, right? A lot of people sometimes asking for our time and asking us to run errands for us, or all these other things, or doing something at work additionally to what we are doing. And I think that if you have a healthy yes and no practice in place, whereas you can speak your truth and just say, hey, that doesn't work for me right now. And just basically, even if you did want to do it, making sure that you're doing it at when it's convenient for you, and practicing that. Protect your time, because that's like really the most valuable thing. Because sometimes we do say things, we say yes to a lot of things that we're just looking to either please people or possibly have that feeling of belonging. And then we can get caught up a lot in that specific vicious cycle. So I think that that's definitely something to, work on, is having a healthy yes and no practice. And I think that one thing that I also wanted to touch on was movement, right? Exercising, walking and dancing and skipping and all of when you're moving your body and incorporating the movement into your meditation, your self-care, your prayer time, just having a moment of silence, right? Where you're just sitting and just being at peace with yourself, with journaling, and also, incorporating movement is a great way to reduce stress. And again, people are going to get the best version of you versus having the leftovers.
Mhm. I love that you were mentioning that about the healthy yes and no, because I had to learn that the hard way of saying yes to way too many things that I should have said no to. I think I was a bit of a people pleaser for too many years. I just didn't want to let people down, and
Right.
it's hard, but it puts a lot of stress on you. And so it's so good to learn how to say no to things. It is okay. It's okay if, especially if it's something that you don't feel passionate about yourself, don't take it on. Don't take it on.
Right. Because when you're saying yes to something, you're always saying no to something else. And it's usually what you truly want.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll pop in. I mean, you guys made some great points. I want to just, kind of add to what you said, Carrie, just about who you show up as. For me, I just, this is a good little tool for people is, I just laminate a little card of a person, I created of who I wanted to show up and work. And I am being empowering, inspiring, fully self-expressed, and miracles. And every morning I would just touch it, read it, and put it in my pocket. And then you have in your pocket, you always reach for change or your cell phone. You're always touching it. Eventually, it's like using some NLP, some anchoring. So just slowly over time, that's the person I became. And at my desk, I have a different one for at home. And so just like who do I want to show up at home? Confident, loving, whatever that may be for you. And I think it's a good way. Friends would always used to laugh because they'd come in my car or come into my bathroom and I have little post-its or signs of different, little things for me, to just check in with myself. Because I think that's really important for people too, to continuously, when it comes to stress, a lot of it is self-created, the environment always is the environment. So, traffic could be stressful for somebody and it's not stressful to the other one, but it's the same trigger. So why is it? It's, you're the common denominator. So sometimes you need to check in with yourself. Maybe you need to get a coach or, maybe you need to get to the gym. Like, Emanuela said, it's just really starting to, ways to start to let go of some of the stuff you may be holding on to. So, I think those are important too when it comes to stress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I agree. And having those little sticky notes here and there just to remind you of that,
Right.
that's awesome. I have that in my car, all over at my house, sometimes
Absolutely.
inside of a cupboard.
That's great too. Yeah. On my bathroom mirror. I mean, they're like, yeah, I'd put them all over.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep,
that's
it's a
good.
great reminder. Yeah, because it's like we don't actually want to show up as a big stress ball. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
nobody's gonna set an intention that they want to be stressed or that they want to be frazzled or anything like that. Nobody wants to be. So it's like if you can keep reminding yourself of who do I want to be, then it's a lot easier to be that person that you want to be rather than that crazy stress ball.
Right. And you know what? I think that one thing also is letting go of the perfectionist, right? Because a lot of us, and I know myself, I have definitely been, I've seen that in myself, and that is something that I work on every day, is really letting go of the perfectionist side and creating conditions for success that are pleasurable and in small chunks, right? So they're doable, right? And it creates momentum to keep moving forward instead of always defaulting to it's too hard, it's got to be perfect, right? Because sometimes that type of, and I know in myself it creates that I'm going to fail if it's not perfect, right? Or sometimes it can also create perfectionism or actually procrastination. So instead of looking at things that they have to be perfect and needing to be 100% or not at all, what if you were able to create 1% change every day? Right? And how might you commit How might your commitment to yourself change if you could follow through consistently just by making small changes so that it becomes natural and automatic? Because sometimes when we're in that perfectionist mode, we put so much pressure on ourselves, just like Dr. Kris was saying about putting a lot of pressure on ourselves, right? And that is something that I've been working on myself with doing that, because I used to see that in myself a lot, and it creates a lot of stress because you want to be the perfect wife, mom, perfect, business owner, or perfect coworker, or perfect employee. And it just creates a lot of unneeded stress. So taking things in smaller chunks, right?
Mhm. Yep, absolutely.
I would also say, along the lines of like saying, having your healthy yes and healthy no, is when possible, creating more space in your day with, especially if you're someone who like has to be on lots of meetings or go to appointments or things like that, allowing more space in between those things. And this really, I feel like, got heightened during the pandemic, where you can be on Zoom meeting like back to back to back to back, where before that it was like, okay, I need to make sure I have drive time and this and that in between, where now it's like, oh, you can have a meeting at 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, and I was doing that for a really long time, where it's just like, oh yeah, let's just go back to back, right? Like there's no reason why not. But then how many meetings go overtime? How many meetings don't start on time? And then it's like, but then within that too, when you're doing that, then you're neglecting yourself, because then it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to go to the bathroom. I don't have time to get more water or get something to eat. And so creating more space in between meetings. And that's like that healthy yes and healthy no, or an opportunity where it's like, okay, I really want to say yes to this, but being realistic with yourself with how much time do I actually have? Instead of being like, oh, I can squeeze this in here. It's like, no, I need this extra time to take care of myself. And it goes back to the example of the traffic too. If you're giving yourself that extra space and time, then oftentimes a traffic jam isn't going to cause as much stress, because you have the extra time. And so when possible, because I know it's not always possible, but when possible, like really building in extra space in between whatever you have going on, even if it's 10 or 15 minutes, because then if you have that extra space too, well, especially as it gets nicer, it's like, okay, I can go take a breath of fresh air outside. I can go get some sun on my face and those types of things, which can help you to de-stress. You can go like, I like to go barefoot in the grass and just like get grounded a little bit and just like do those types of things. And it really can add a little bit of like extra joy, which helps to reduce that stress and help you go into your next meeting with less stress from what you were previously doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And just being outside, you're right. It is such a stress reliever, and everybody has their own things that relieve stress. And so taking time to do those things that you enjoy doing, that's a stress relief in itself. So if you enjoy going shopping with your friends, schedule in time to do that regularly, so you have that little outlet to de-stress and just be yourself. If you love dancing or singing, go and do it. Go and do it. Make sure that you're carving out that time, because as much as busy as our schedules can be, if we're not taking the time to do the things that we actually love and enjoy, what is the point? It's like, this is what we should be living for, having fun and things like that, rather than just living back to back meetings or appointments or bringing kids to games or this and that. It's like, that's all fun and everything, especially when kids are little. They grow up way too fast. Hint, hint. And so you're going to miss those days of going to all the games and everything. But also, don't forget to schedule in time. If you miss a game, or if you have to postpone a meeting or something so that you can have time to go get a massage or something like that, it's okay. Everything will keep on going, but you need time for yourself and self-care. Absolutely. Because that will keep the stress levels at bay as well, if you're giving yourself the care you need.
Yes. And you're really
sorry.
modeling too for your kids, I feel like. And that's really the important thing, is like doing that modeling and as especially as they get older, like, okay, I can tell I'm getting stressed, or, like, you notice this in me, and like, that's why I need to go do this, because I need to take care of myself, because I don't want to be yelling at you or be doing this or that. And so I think it can really be helpful in modeling for our kids too.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd add, it's that that old age quote of like, whose mask you put on first on a plane, right? So we do have to make sure that we put our mask on. So yeah, self-care and taking care of ourselves is important. One thing I'd like to add too is really something I call like the 80-20 rule. A lot of times, especially in relationships, family, there's typically, 80% of the things you love about the person and 20% you don't, or you find out things that you don't like about the person. And often that leads to separation or divorce or family issues, and I just tell people just to stick that in the 20% that you don't like about them, because I promise you move to somebody else, whether it's another friendship, another relationship, there's going to be a 20% you don't like in them either. It might be 20% different, another 80% that you like about them that's different than the last friendship or relationship, but there's going to be that stuff. And a lot of times people focus too much on the 20% when there's so much more that they enjoy. Even with coworkers, there's something that really bothers you, and we focus on that stuff with that coworker that drives you bananas, and I just say, well, stick that in the 20%. Really, you can't really change that, but you like 80 other percent of it. Focus on that 80% rather than be on that 20% that you don't like about them. So I think that's important too.
Yeah,
Oh.
because that actually, you're going to wind up kind of taking on that energy, right? You want to really stick with high, good energy, positive energy. When you start to really, focus on other people and what they're doing that you don't like, that kind of shifts your mood, right? So you really want to kind of detach yourself if you can. Definitely detach
Right.
yourself, because it's not worth it, because then you wind up bringing that home, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. You just kind of ignore not really ignore, but you just take a deep breath and move on and focus on other things. If your coworkers are bothering you or your family members are bothering you, there's been many times where I've just had to, mute myself on calls or, walk in a different room or something like that, do what you need to do to separate yourself from the stressful situation if you need to.
But also, I think it's about speaking your truth, right? But speaking and communicating in a way where you're going to be heard, and it's effective and in a calm voice, right? But if someone obviously is not treating you right, then you should speak your truth. But I think that because that also creates the boundaries, right? That creates healthy boundaries. Then they'll know next time they can't treat you the wrong way, because they know what you will tolerate and what you won't tolerate. So that's also a good way. And adding into the meditation and the breath work, there's a great breathing technique. It's called the 5-5-7 breath. So you inhale for 5, you hold the breath for 5, and you exhale for a count of 7. The exhale is longer than your hold and your inhale. But if you do this 10 times, and you can do it anywhere, you can do it in traffic, at work, nobody has to even know that you're doing it. It can actually trick your body into relaxing in 2 minutes if you do it 10 times, because you're going to wind up starting to breathe as a relaxed person, and your body's going to be like, wait a minute, I must be relaxed because I'm breathing like a relaxed person, right? So you can trick your body into relaxing just by doing that breath.
Yes. And I think that before you speak the truth to people, you might want to do that deep relaxing.
Yes.
You don't want to say anything you don't mean to say.
No. No.
You want to come at it calm. Otherwise, you might want to wait on that one.
Yes, right. You want to call in your guides, practice, breathe, be calm, and just speak your truth, right?
Yeah, awesome. Well, these have been such amazing techniques and tips and tricks. I mean, people are going to just be so relaxed now and non-stressed after listening to this, right?
Right.
Do any of you have anything else to share before we close out today?
Just take it one step at a time, one day at a time. Take small chunks and just breathe, right?
Yeah, and don't judge yourself. We
Right.
make mistakes, and
Absolutely.
it's easy to get stuck again on ourselves, like, oh, I didn't do it yesterday, or you're starting the morning routine and you didn't do it today, and it's like, back to square one. It's like, oh, I'm starting new again today, and rather than beat yourself up, and that didn't help anyway. So just start again, stay positive, and yeah, stay and breathe. Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say almost the same thing as Kris, like give yourself a break. And when you're doing that, when you're giving yourself that break, or you're saying like, okay, like it's okay, I don't have to be perfect, and you get used to doing that, then it's easier for you to give other people a break too. And so when you're having those situations, then you can take a step back, get yourself regulated, so then you can have those harder conversations. So yeah, I would say like give yourself a break. Know that that this too shall pass, typically, right? And that if this is something that you've struggled with for a long time, that's where coaches are really helpful, because sometimes you need to separate or you're so close to all of your stuff that you feel like, oh, I can't do any of the stuff that they're saying. That's why you need someone else on the outside that can kind of reflect back to you um, reflect back to like where you might not be seeing these gaps. And so, yeah, that's what I would
Yeah,
recommend.
I agree
Yeah.
with you. Coaches are definitely helpful in that sense. And always remember, right, that mistakes are just learning opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've made plenty. So and I've learned a lot.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it be a coach or a loved one or anybody, if you feel like you have a bit too much on your plate or things have been stressful, see where you can kind of allow others to step in and help you out in those situations, because like you were saying, Michelle, that sometimes when you're too close to a situation, you don't really see the full picture. You're looking at it, you're just like the picture in the picture frame, instead of like stepping back and seeing the picture as somebody else, and yeah, and don't stress over what was or was not done. Give yourself grace and keep moving little bit at a time, and try out one or two of these techniques. It doesn't have to be everything all at once. You can listen to all of the stuff that we just suggested and take whatever little bit resonates with you and just give something a try. And if that doesn't work, then try something else. And there's going to be things that work at different points in your life too. We're all going through different phases, and so it's okay, and you've got this.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you all so much for
Absolutely.
joining me. This has been incredible. And we have, so much amazing knowledge to share with everybody that they can now put into their life and de-stress. So
Right.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Yes, have a
you.
great day.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. It has been a pleasure being with you today. I hope that you enjoyed this and got some value out of it. If you did, be sure to rate and review on wherever you're listening or watching. And also be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.